Boss, Mr. Kenny, Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk says support for his country is as much important for Canada's security as it is for Ukraine. It's not just about Ukraine, it's about all of us. It's about Canadian security too, because Ukraine protects European borders and democracy. Would you agree with Mr. Yatsenyuk?
Yes, I met with Prime Minister Yatsenyuk in Kiev 3 weeks ago and in Ottawa last week, where we signed the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement. Our view is that Ukraine, of course, there are many Russian-speaking Ukrainians, and Ukraine and Russia have a special and close relationship. But Ukrainians should be able to determine their own sovereign future as a country, as a democracy. And we believe that, regrettably, President Putin has violated the spirit and the letter of the agreements that led to Ukraine's independence back in 1991, with the occupation of Crimea and the Donbass. Right now, just yesterday, President Putin's representative at the United Nations voted against a resolution supported by every other UN, every other member of the Security Council, to require an international investigation into the terrible crime of the destruction of the Malaysian Airlines flight a year ago over the skies of eastern Ukraine. Over 300 innocent civilians were killed, I suspect, by Russian armaments being used by so-called rebels in eastern Ukraine. And someone has to be brought to account for this kind of crime. So I think that that's really what Prime Minister Yatsenyuk is suggesting.
Mm-hmm. And, Ukrainian community in Canada is large, strong, appreciate medical and financial aid which government of Mr. Harper provides to Ukraine. But the question is, why not to send weapons to allow Ukrainians defend themselves? Some media experts say Canadian government, along with US, doesn't want to give Ukraine latest weapons because Ukraine's top intelligence agency deeply infiltrated by Russian spies, and they can easily copy our modern technology and use it against NATO allies. How correct it is?
There are some concerns about members, about individuals in the Ukrainian system who might share that information illegally. That is a concern. But primarily, look, first of all, Canada has been very generous in sharing non-lethal equipment with the Ukrainians, things like winter gear, night vision goggles, bulletproof vests, and things of that nature. We've now deployed 200 Canadian Army troops to western Ukraine, west of Lviv, to help with professionalizing the Ukrainian military. But there is no consensus amongst our Western allies that we should provide lethal equipment. There is a desire that we find a political diplomatic solution to the conflict there, and to avoid escalation. I think one thing we're all concerned about is that if President Putin were to make a very serious, aggressive military offensive, backed clearly by his army, from the Donbass westward towards Mariupol and the Crimea, this would constitute a flagrant violation of the Munich Accord, and so we would. I think Canada and other Western countries would reconsider our position on providing lethal equipment if there was that kind of offensive.
And Mr. Kenny, speaking of Russia.